Welcome to Vantage Point Podcast, a podcast brought to you by NWR Communications and 92 Studio. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.
Hello and thank you for joining us today. My name is Ben Cray and I'm from NWR Communications. Today I'm joined by Ron Douglas, the CEO of VHM. VHM is developing the Goschen Rare Earths and Mineral Sands project in northwest Victoria. Hello and thank you for joining us. Today I am joined by Ron Douglas, the CEO of VHM. Thank you for being here today, Ron.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I thought a good way to start today would be just to get an introduction to the Goschen Mineral Sands and Rare Earths project in northwest Victoria. Can you take me through the project and why it's such a unique project for the state and the country and the critical minerals industry as a whole?
Big question, Ben. The VHM has this great asset called Goschen. We're a Victorian company, ASX listed. We went public 2 years ago with our Goschen project via an IPO. Huge resource in northwestern Victoria. Nearest town is Swan Hill. It's in that region. The valley, the mineralisation was created by the erosion of the Boga granites, and so there's this whole sand setting with both mineral sands and rare earths in the sand setting, and so we're aware of the mineral sands, which is the zircon and the titanium minerals, which are fundamental to urbanisation, tiles and paints and that, but sitting with that is the rare earths, which are actually the monazites and the xenotines, which are fundamental to the decarbonisation future of the world. So it plays a fundamental part in EVs, electric vehicles, wind turbines, medical uses, defence. It has a whole range of very strategic applications, and thus the two together is a very compelling mineralisation story.
Sure, and you've just touched on mineral sands and also rare earths being critical minerals. Why else are both so critical, and what is the attraction of both in the years ahead?
Look, the way that the world is moving and to move away from essentially the petroleum products and the coals, and to achieve that, you actually need to have other means of generating power, and that is essentially through the creation of magnets and the only way they work is the secret sauce of putting rare earths with them. And NdPr, neodymium and praseodymium are the two basic elements, but to make them a more improved application, you also have dysprosium and terbium. We're in the wonderful position of having all four of the key rare earths, which are fundamental to power generation, and the move to nuclear power as well. It requires dysprosium for the reactor rods, and that application moves into defence as well. If you're after creating a fighter jet or a nuclear submarine, you need an awful lot of rare earths. So they're really strategic. However, you can't use your iPhone without rare earths. All these day-to-day uses of technology, which we generally take for granted, come from the product that we are about to mine. So it's really the interesting function of our two revenue streams. One is about urbanisation, in other words, the zircon and the titania, the heavy minerals, being the paints and the tiles, and there's an awful lot of the world that still needs to urbanize. And I often mock my wife because she's always re-urbanizing with replacing tiles and repainting. And so there's this wonderful revenue stream which is really quite vanilla. It's always there and it just keeps on going. And then we have the more exotic revenue stream, which is the rare earths, which everyone is just becoming aware of now because of geopolitical issues that are getting a lot of press at this moment in time.
And I hope you're always very careful when you mock your wife like that. But
my wife has been with me for some time now, so she a little gentle mocking always works.
I'm sure it does. So back onto the rare earths. Rare earths have, of course, been in the news in recent weeks, as you mentioned, in particular because China has just introduced export restrictions on certain rare earths. Can you tell me about the situation there?
There's a long history to this, and the Western world, if we go back 25, 30 years, the mining of rare earths was in the clay style of mineralization, and it was really quite environmentally unattractive. And so we essentially exported this to China. And so China, through their rare earth deposits, which are really, the big one is in Mongolia, and then they've subsequently developed Myanmar, they have been the producer of rare earths for the world, essentially, and the rest of the Western world we're comfortable with that. We're happy with, we have a supplier that doesn't require us to mine or process, so let's just leave it as it is. And they've had 25 years to learn how to process and refine those from the carbonates to the oxides and then to the metal itself. And there's something like 1,000 process steps to get from the mine to a magnet. And so it's really quite complicated. Now, it started probably 15 years ago when China restricted rare earth supply to Japan for a period of time in retaliation for a trade event. And the event you're referring to now is very recent, where there's been tariffs tit for tat at this moment in time. Yep. And one of the responses from China was to put controls on 7 of the rare earths, which are just fundamental to the way society is moving. And so it makes us all focus on why is there not a Western supply chain? And that is the focus of a number of Western governments at the moment, to actually make a Western supply chain, so that, and it's just risk mitigation. You always wish to know that there are alternate sources should something go wrong. It could be a natural disaster, a cyclone or whatever, and a source gets impacted. So you like to know that there is another source as well. So they're very strategic. We have a fair amount of catching up to do, in that if you look at patents and IP that have been applied for in the rare earth sector, China has dominated that area by about 50%. So they're because they're working in this product all the time, they're having the good ideas and they're making the improvements. So we're on this journey to just catch up as quickly as we can, such that we become a reliable supplier to everyone who needs it.
Sure. And if these controls are to remain in place for some time, what potential does that create for a company such as VHM?
Well, obviously, I'm always going to see the upside, and the upside is that supply demand will get out of sync, and demand will push prices up, and which will underpin the economics of what we're developing. So, whilst I've been in the industry long enough to know that, these sorts of mismatches don't last long, because there will be new entries to the marketplace. The immediate, the shorter term will be over the next couple of years, you'll see demand outstripping available supply and putting price pressure to rise.
Okay. So now if we hone in on VHM and the company's recent achievements, last week the company received the mining licence from the Victorian government for the Goschen project. How significant was this for the company?
Oh, huge step. We have started on the journey of getting our mine permitted some 2 years ago. The primary permit is their environmental effects statement, the EES as it's called. That's some 4,000 pages of documentation, and that's to demonstrate to both the public and the government that we are going to mine and produce our rare earth and heavy mineral in a manner that is well within controls that are necessary and not damaging to either the environment or the communities in which we live. So that was it's a very rigorous process in Victoria. That was in late 2023. We submitted those documents. We then went through a lengthy period of public panel where we present our cases, and all those that are concerned about what is going to happen can present their case as well. So there is a considered opinion on how well we're going to operate. The finding from that was released in December of 2024, and the Victorian government said that our approach is excellent. We had, our technical people are brilliant and they've done a really great job. And once we'd passed that hurdle, that enabled us to actually apply for a mining license, which is the fundamental piece of legislation that says, okay, we know how you're going to operate. Okay, now we want permission to mine. And that was awarded to us. So maybe a small glass of champagne was had on the day. But it was just brilliant for the company, brilliant for the shareholders. They've been on a long journey. So it's both our community, our shareholders, our employees, big step forward. In somewhat, it's keeping with the Victorian government's approach, because when they awarded us our environmental effects statement, they also released their critical minerals roadmap, which was a message to their constituents that mining will be a fundamental part of enabling the state to be great. And I'll put in one anecdote in that if you go back in time, Melbourne at one stage was the richest capital in the world, and all the great sandstone buildings were constructed. And that came on the back of gold mining at Bendigo and Ballarat, and huge wealth flow. And there's opportunity now to actually create a future-looking industry, which will be creating the world, the decarbonisation that we're after, that our children seek to, and we want for our children as well. So I think it's great for us, great for the state, and it will have great opportunity for our communities and our employees as well.
And I agree that, and also think that more than a small glass of champagne was well deserved by the company and its shareholders after that mining license was received. And you also mentioned the EES, that was December 2024, which the Victorian government approved for the company. What have been a few of the other major milestones which have paved the way for the company to reach the mining license?
Oh, look, we've been... I joined this company with the purpose of creating as much value for all our stakeholders. That's, obviously the shareholders, the local community, the government, and that value is created by getting to production. Actually, up until that point, you have a deposit, but its true value is released when it's actually creating products for the world. So the economy is moving forward. And so we have been actively looking at how we get into production. So we had feasibilities created. We then started looking at our partners to actually enable this, and so we went and engaged with Yellow Iron Fleet, which are a mid-sized mining company based in mid-Victoria. So once again, use local suppliers, use local contractors. So we entered an agreement, and they have been inputting into all our costs as we move forward. So we're very clear on our operating costs and our capital costs. We've entered into an arrangement with our process designer as well. And also local contractors to put in water pipes, etc., to provide water and power to the operation. And so as each one of those were met, we then looked at what was the best way to start, and we looked at a phased development where we start a little smaller than what we're permitted for, but during the panel, it was brought up by the community, don't impact on housing and on jobs. And so if we start small or smaller, that enables everyone to work together and grow into the asset that we want it to be. It has the advantage of a lower capital cost as well for the shareholders. The federal government gave us a major project status again. So we keep on ticking the requirements, and the mining license was the last of that major government permits required. We have our banks will want to know that they'll get their money back, so it's important you have offtake agreements as well. So we're currently finalising. We currently have an existing offtake agreement, but we're now going to get offtake agreement for the remainder of our product such that it underpins the revenue streams, and that makes raising debt and equity, which will enable us to develop, and we can actually start moving to financial investment decisions. So once I'm comfortable that we've actually got a clear direction, well, I know we have a clear direction, but we have a financial solution to go with our regulatory solution, to go with our technical solution, I'll go to the board and say, we are ready to proceed. Can I get final investment decision? And then we will move into construction.
Sure. So when is the company targeting a final investment decision, and when does it hope to begin production with that phased approach?
I expect to get back to the board in third quarter of this year. So I don't want to narrow it to a day or a week, but third quarter. I've got a very strong board, and they will hold me to, so third quarter board, and that will get us into production quarter 4 of 2026. And we're looking to take advantage of these geopolitical discussions we're having, where there is a focus on finding alternate supply chains for rare earths, and I think moving quickly into that gap is important. So the advantage of the phased approach enables us to be nimble, it's smaller, get in production. There's always hiccups. Projects take a while until you actually get everything running well, and that enables us to learn at a smaller scale and then ramp up to our permitted throughput of 5 million tonne per annum.
Okay, sounds great. And you mentioned the Victorian government, which has been supportive of VHM and the company's plans. From VHM's perspective, what can the company provide the state and the region in which it operates?
Oh, look, the benefits in jobs and just tax through and royalty payments are significant. So we're talking over life of mine billions. If you look at regional Victoria and you go through the smaller towns, and you know, I did a trip as part of being in the community through the smaller towns, Lalbeth and that supporting us, and the football team is no longer there, and it's lost its local newspaper. And that's because the children of rural communities, they're looking for opportunity, and often they're found in the cities, or they go to the uni, and if they do their whatever qualification they do, it's hard to bring that back to a small community. Part of the advantage of bringing mining into communities is that there's a whole host of technical roles, geo-mining, environmental, social, that will enable local community to come back and live in there where they grew up. And it works for everyone. The farming community is somewhat at the impact of climate, as in weather. I don't mean, climate change. I'm talking just weather. Some years it rains, some years it doesn't. And so revenue flows can travel up and down if there's this other asset working, side by side, that enable them, so the farmer's daughter, the farmer's wife, the father's son can work in some way into the mining operation. It provides stability for economics for that relationship. So everyone's a winner. You need to look at these things as an opportunity. We have our mining approach is, and I come from mining in all my background. Our mining approach is to excavate a panel, essentially, a rather large panel, then move on to the next panel, and this panel is backfilled with all the material that we took out. So we only take a small portion, being 5%, which is the heavy mineral, and the remainder of the sand gets replaced in the void. We put the overburden back on, and then the topsoil back on. And we have demonstrated, and on quite a large number of mineral sands operation, that it returns to the state that it was. So essentially farming land returns to farming land, and we have passed through, taken some valuable mineral which enables the world to move forward, and the farming land returns to farming land. So it really is in a mining sense, it really is as friendly as you can possibly get.
Okay. And Ron, you've covered off on a lot today about what's coming up for VHM, but in the near term, what can shareholders expect to see next?
Oh, look, we, and I mentioned it in an early comment, we are looking to get the rest of our product off-takers for that. So we're in active discussions at this moment in time. We will be looking to engage with, because we are getting support from the export agencies, and so we're looking to move that forward as well. So as we make progress on our financing, and be that banks, export finances, because if you have a Japanese off-taker, for instance, their export credit agency will assist us to enable them to get their off-take. So we're talking with a lot of counterparties on how we put together a financing package that enable us to develop this asset. So I'm looking to, as we achieve those targets, we'll be coming out, then ultimately final investment decision, and then commence construction. So a lot of, I must admit, we've just taken this huge step with the mining license. The next bit is how we finance it and get it going.
Well, once again, well done on receiving the mining license, Ron, and thanks for that great wrap-up of where the company's at the moment, and I look forward to watching the VHM progress towards production at the Goschen project. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ben. Been a pleasure. Cheers.
No problem.